In my last video, I showed you how to set up N8N MCP with anti-gravity, which you can use to create workflows, N8N workflows in natural language. And in this video, we are going to be testing and building N8N workflows with that N8N MCP in anti-gravity. Now, before we go on, there's this common rule with LLMs and software engineering at large, which is garbage in, garbage out. This means that the quality of the output you get from an LLM is directly proportional to the quality of your input, which basically means the more detailed your prompt is, the more likely the agent gets the workflow right the first time. All right, that said, let's head over to Antigravity and start building our workflows. All right, we are live in Antigravity, and the first thing we are going to do is make sure our MCP is configured. So we click on MCP servers, manage MCP servers, then yes, as you can see, refresh just to make sure everything is all set up and ready to go. Yeah, the tools are all there, the MCP is configured. So we can close this and go back to our agent and start building workflows. So the first workflow we are going to build is a daily weather update agent that sends an email if there's going to that gets the weather data from Open Weather Map and then sends an email to an account of your choosing on the updates about the weather if there's going to be rain or there's going to be sun. So I'm just going to paste in the prompt. Now the prompt says create a workflow that fetches the weather every morning. With the Open Weather Map node, we are specifying the node to call at 4 a.m. and then checks if there's going to be rainfall that day and sends me a there's supposed to be let's say nicely formatted email using the Gmail node. Again, specifying the exact node you want to be in your workflow, reminding me to take a raincoat. So we're just going to hit send and let Sonnet 4.5 do its thing. Yeah, you can see it's calling the two search nodes. Then it's going to get detailed information about the key nodes it will need. Just gonna wait for this guy to load. It's first of all checking the health of the connection to the N8N instance. Yeah, yeah. You can click on these details to show the tools and the prompt the agent ran in the MCP. All right, the agent is done, and for some reason, it's created the workflow JSON instead of deploying it in the N8N instance, but we're going to fix that right now. Okay, it's generating a README. Then click accept. No, 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 we don't need a visual diagram. Let's see. Deploy. Directly in the N8N instance. Wait for that to work. Yeah, and one advantage of using AI to generate anything workflows is we can ask it to generate a README, some sort of documentation, because creating documentation is a very tedious task for automation engineers. So having AI create the workflow, then create the documentation makes everything easier. So you can just refer to documentation should you want to change anything or modify any part of the workflow. All right, it has run a health check, which means our instance is connected and waiting to deploy. I'll be back when it deploys. All right, we're back. the agent has completely deployed the workflow in N8N instance, in my N8N instance. And let me just show you a few of the, let me show you the agent process, right? So the first thing it did was to create a workflow called create workflow to the MCP. That there was a validation error in the if node. It created another workflow and fixed it, deployed the workflow, then called the validate workflow to make sure that the workflow has no errors. It discovered there's an expression error in the GBL node and called the autofix workflow tool, still in the same MCP. Discovered that the autofix can't handle the HTML template, so it's updated the workflow to use a code node instead of the HTML. Instead of HTML, which completely removes the expression syntax issues. Then it fixed the connection parameters called different various tools whilst checking the documentation of these tools so it can get the accurate so we can get an accurate and valid workflow. And then it went on, called a bunch of tools and created a summary document, visual diagram, and the final quick start guide at the end, which is very cool. It's very cool. Ordinarily, well, this is a simple automation, but ordinarily this would take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes of connecting nodes in N8N to achieve this result. But we're done, basically, practically done with the workflow in 2 to 3 minutes. Let's head over to N8N, to my N8N instance to inspect the workflow because you can't fully trust AI. All right, this is it. Weather daily alert 4 a.m. Oh wow, workflow not found. Oh, it's deleted the workflow and created another one. So we probably have to refresh the instance so we get the updated one. Let's see. Ah, yeah, this is the workflow. All right, so we're going to inspect. Okay, you got the schedule trigger run at 4 a.m. Open weather map node, check for rain, and then if node, if there's rain, true, send a Gmail. Okay, let's check the nodes. So all we have to do is just come up here and set up your API key for open weather map. City, okay, okay, works. All right, let's test this. Let's test this. I'm going to use a temporary mail to send the mail. Paste it here. Yeah, and then add a manual trigger. And we got mail. Let's refresh. Yeah, we got the mail with the subject rain alert. Do not forget your raincoat. Let's open the mail and we get this nicely formatted email with styling and everything. This is really nice. This is really nice. So, like I said, this would ordinarily take 10 to 15, anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes of manual setup time, but we're able to achieve this in 2 3 minutes with anti-gravity and the N8N MCP. All right, let's go to the next workflow. This one is a bit harder. It's going to be a simple web search agent using CRXNG as a search tool. So let's click run. Wait for it to generate. All right, Claude is done generating the workflow. And the same thing happened again. It did not deploy it directly in the N8N instance. And you can see it got confused here when I said a simple web search agent using CRXNG as a search tool. It got confused and wanted to create a modern web application, but I specified in N8N, which is also why you have to be specific with your prompt. So you do not confuse the LLM on what its task is. So yeah, you forgot to deploy it directly. So we're just going to ask it to deploy. Can't be doing this every time. Maybe I'll add it in the prompt. The workflow in my N8N instance. All right, the workflow is deployed. Give us a link. We can copy. We can copy the link and go paste in our browser. Wait for it to load. Ah, we have a problem. It appears, even when I was testing for this video, it has always had a problem creating. I'm using the AI agent node, and let's quickly try to fix that. So just tell it use AI agent node for the web search workflow. It says the AI agent node is configured correctly, which is not true. Hmm. All right. How about maybe we switch to Opus 4.5, a more powerful model, and just try maybe it will work this time, or we might have to edit it manually ourselves. Mhm. Get the workflow, same result. All right. Uh, well, AI is not perfect, so I guess this is a stock example of that. So I guess we'll have to manually get our hands dirty by getting a functioning AI agent node in this workflow. Chat trigger. Oh, we're not using OpenAI. We are using OpenRouter. Let's use Mistral Nemo because it's lightweight and cost. Use this tool. You also got the tool wrong. I think I need to show you guys what's inside. Yeah, it had the description on point, but the URL, the everything else is not ideal. So we could just copy the description for the tool and use the actual CRX NG tool. Query to be done by this, by AI. Tool description, paste in description from there, then ask it what's the latest news in AI. Yeah, it works. even though we had to manually dig in and get our hands dirty. It works. So we're going to go back to anti-gravity, delete all these files, start a new conversation, and paste in this prompt. All right. So the prompt is create two separate workflows. The first one is the ingestion pipeline, which monitors a local folder, PDF files, reads the files, extracts all text from the file, and then splits it into chunks into a vector database. As you can, I'm specifying the exact vector database we want to use for this text, for this example, and using, and I'm also specifying the embedding model, nomic embed text from Olama, while the second one is a RAG agent with conversation history limit of 3. Again, getting specific with your prompt. Now this prompt is kind of whack. If you want to get good results, you should use a more elaborate and detailed prompt. Anyways, conversation history limit of 3, and it's connected to Qdrant. I made a mistake here. Qdrant data and vector database as a tool to retrieve the top 4 chunks relating to the user's query in the database. Now, because this is a kind of more complex task, I'm just going to use Opus 4.5 because it's the best available. And yeah, create two separate N8N workflows, N8N, so we do not confuse the agents. We hit run. Mhm. So it's creating, searching relevant nodes for the workflow, found all the needed nodes, detailed information on each key node. Let's get in the node. You can always toggle this button. No, it's not toggling. You can always toggle that button to see the tool calls and really get an insight as to how anti-gravity is calling these MCPs and interacting with your N8N instance. All right, here's the information it needs. Start by creating the workflow and deploy them to your N8N instance. I forgot to specify that in the prompt, but it seems Opus 4.5 was fine. Yeah, hide the details of this one. All right, so I'm just going to let Opus cook and I'll come back when it's done. All right, we're back. Workflows are created. The first one, the PDF ingestion pipeline and RAG agent with Qdrant. Interested. This would be very cool if it works. So let's go back to N8N. Okay, okay. Let's check the ingestion pipeline first. Uh, well, we have errors as usual, but it got most of the nodes right. It has the local file trigger, although this path is wrong, but we can always change that. Uh, read file node, you got it wrong. Extract PDF, okay, this is fine. Prepare text data. I don't think we need this, but okay. Qdrant, we could connect a Qdrant account. Olama, connect the embedding model. Document loader. Okay, this is pretty solid. It's like 80, 70 to 80% done. Let me save this. Then go back here and check the RAG agent. Yeah, it seems this MCP has a problem with using, creating agents. It somehow always gets the node wrong. All right, document search. knowledge base, embedding conversation memory. Okay. At least you got this right. Three, you got that right. Olama model. We'll not be using Olama, but okay. Let's fix. I'll fix the issues in the workflow. All right, we're back. The workflow issues have been fixed, and everything is working perfectly now. All I did majorly was to set the correct credentials, remove some inconsistencies in the AI output, and the RAG agent, although quite simple, is live. It works. So we can test by triggering the workflow. So this workflow, it watches this folder, the shared folder in the Docker compose stack of this N8N instance. I'm running a self-hosted instance, so there's a shared folder mounted as a volume on the N8N container. So just trigger the download of a PDF into the folder, which then reads the file, extracts text from the file, then insert into this database, just as we described in the workflow while explaining to anti-gravity. While this other one just basically is a RAG agent that queries the knowledge base that we ingested those files into, and give us output based on the PDF. So let's trigger this workflow real quick. Yeah, we're just going to set a random, just going to download this PDF into the folder. I forgot to turn this guy on. Okay, let's run that again. Yeah, that should trigger the workflow. It's inserted, it has chunked the PDF, split it into chunks, and inserted that into the database. We can see it here. So each of this splits the PDF into 8 different chunks, which it puts in the vector database. So let's go over to our RAG agent, reload, go over to our RAG agent and ask it questions. It's the PDF is a 365 Microsoft 365 FAQ document. So we can just ask, what is 365? Calls the knowledge base, and we have an answer. 365 is a trusted, secure, productive way, and blah 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 blah. Yeah, I must say I am pretty impressed with the N8N MCP. I just had to do some minimal edits to the workflow generated, especially the AI agent node. It keeps, in all the tests I've run, it keeps failing setting it up correctly. So you have to manually set that up. But apart from that, it's pretty solid, especially when you're using anti-gravity coupled with Opus 4.5. It works. All right. So my final thoughts on this MCP. AI is not perfect and it can make mistakes. So before you connect your workflows, your MCP to your instance, especially to your instance, make sure you duplicate your existing workflow so AI does not mess it up as during testing messed a few of my workflows up. And also make your prompts as comprehensive as possible. Remember, your output is only as good as your input. So the more detailed and comprehensive your prompt is, the more likely the agent gets the workflow right the first time. And also, sometimes you might have to get your hands dirty and solve errors in the workflow by yourself by digging into the nodes, editing some code files and whatever, but it's a huge time saver for automation peeps as it gets you 70 to 80% of the results upfront in less time. So uh, final score is very good. It's a very good MCP. You could test it. I'm going to drop the links to the websites, the GitHub repo, and the uh, examples, the N8N workflows that were generated. I will be dropping them in the comment section. All right, that's it for this video. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.